Over the next few weeks, we're going to be discussing 4 different types of drawings. The first one is a construction plan. The second is a furniture and finish plan. The third will be data and communication plan. And the fourth is going to be exterior elevations. We're going to set up one AutoCAD file that's going to host all 4 drawings. So you'll start by opening up AutoCAD 2017 and click on Start Drawing. Let's set up our units to be architectural, UN, space. Switch the type to architectural, and then click OK. Let's set up our first layout space for Module 11. We'll right-click in here, rename 11, construction plan. We can set up our construction plan to be 12 by 18 by right-clicking, Page Setup Manager, Modify. Set up the printer to be PDF. You can use Bluebeam if you have one, or drawing to PDF. The paper size should be ARC-C. That is 18 by 24. Ensure that this is layout space. And for the plot style, we're going to create another one similar to what we've done in the first 2 sessions. Click on Preview. This is what your layout looks like. You can hit Escape to go back to the Page Setup Manager, and then click on OK, and then close. This is the first viewport in here. We'll come back to this viewport later when we're ready to put our first drawing in here. But we can repeat the same for layout 2. A faster way to do this is to copy this one so we don't have to set it up again. So we can right-click on this one and delete it. Then we can right-click on the layout that we've set up, copy or move, choose Move to End, and create a copy. Then click OK. And here's a new copy that I can right-click and rename 12 Furniture and Finish Plan. Right-click, copy or move, move to end, create copy, OK. Right-click, rename, and this would be 13 Data and Communications Plan. Right-click, copy or move, move to end, create copy, OK. Right-click and rename exterior elevation. Now that that's set up, let's go back to our model space. And we're ready to start drawing. Under Module 11, you're going to see 2 files. One JPEG called 1 Floor Plan Walls, and another JPEG is called 2 Floor Plan Deck and Windows. If we take a look at these 2, the first one, Floor Plan Walls, is giving us an outline for a floor plan of a small house with only the walls and the doors. The second one is the same plan, except it's giving us additional information for windows, as well as a front and a back deck. We're going to insert these images and scale them in our AutoCAD and trace them with the precise dimensions that is being outlined as a reference. So to do that, go back to AutoCAD, and we're going to insert our image in here. To insert an image, you're going to go to Insert, Attach. Here I can locate any type of image files, PNG and JPEGs or TIFFs. What you will need to do is download these images onto your computer, and then from here, you're going to locate where you've downloaded them. Here's my first one, open. Here I'm given an option to locate a path. You want to choose full path, it's fine. However, you want to make sure that you never change the location of that image. Otherwise, AutoCAD is not going to be able to find it later. So wherever you download it, make sure you put it in a folder that is related to this class and not move it until you finish referencing it. So we'll keep this on the full path. I'm going to specify on the screen where I want to place it. Click OK. I'll go close to this XY origin in here. Left click for the first time to release it. And then it's asking me for a scale. Doesn't really matter how big this is now because we're going to scale it again anyway. So I'm going to click one more time to release that image. You can access this attach menu by typing in the command, which is attach, and enter. And we'll locate the second one, open, okay. Click the first point and the second to release. Now that I have these two images, if I start to draw any lines, because the background is white, it's going to be very hard for me to see what these lines are or where they are. So what I can do is I can change the opacity on these two images. By selecting the two images on my toolbar on top, I should be able to adjust brightness and contrast and fade. If we take the fade and bring it up to perhaps around 50% or so, then it will become a little bit more faint. So when I draw a line, I'll be able to see my line work in front of it. Another thing that happens often is the draw order. If you select this object, right click, you can change the draw order to front, and now you won't see the line, versus selecting the object, right click, draw order, you can say send back. So you want to click on both images, right click, switch the draw order to send back. And now you should be able to see your line work. Before we continue on drawing or scaling, what we want to do is set up our layers so that we don't have to worry about those when it's time to print. Some of the basic layers that you need is one for this reference. So under the Home tab, Layer Properties, New Layer, and we'll call this one Image Reference. And I don't want this to print, so I'm going to go right here and click on this print sign so I can get the slash and the red sign next to it. Close my layer property, select my object. Going back to my Home tab, I can go to the layer and specify Image Reference. Now we can scale this. We are given dimensions in here. For instance, from this line to this line is 28 feet. Now I inserted these two images at two different scales. So if I select them both and scale, it's not necessarily going to be equal. So I'm going to scale them both using this reference, and I'm going to go back again to rescale this one to its appropriate size. The reason why I do this, if I look at the distance, DI, from here to here, right now this is 1'3". Once I make this 28 feet, it's going to get really, really large, leaving this one being really, really small. So I want them to be somewhat close to each other, and then I can scale them to the exact scale. I'll select both objects, type in SC for scale. I will get as close as possible to this point right in here, which is the tip of the dimension, and that is my first point. Then I'm going to choose reference, so type in R, enter. And now I need to specify what the distance is going to be from here to here. So I'll click the first point from here, then the second point to here. Make sure your line is straight. And now I need to type in how big do I want this to be. In this case, my dimension line says 28 feet, 2, 8, feet sign, enter, and zoom out. Let's verify this one more time. I'm going to click in distance command, DI, enter. I'm going to grab a distance from this point to this point and verify that it's 28 feet. Now let's check this one. I have a dimension here that says from here to here is 8 feet. Let's see how accurate this is. DI, enter. From here to here, it's about 6 feet. So I need to make it a little bit bigger. Hit skip twice, select this image, and let's do the scaling one more time. Selecting the image, SC, enter. Zoom in. I can click this point right here, the beginning of the dimension line, as my base point. Type in R, enter for reference. I'll click the beginning of the dimension string, the second point, which is the end of the dimension string, and then type in the distance, which is 8 feet, enter. And I'm going to verify. DI, enter. From here to here, it's about 8 feet. I'm going to move this drawing a little bit to the right so it doesn't overlap. We'll come back to this one later. First, we're going to start drawing our exterior walls and doors. Then we'll come back to add in our windows and our deck. We want to draw everything in the top right quadrant. So above this X, Y in here. So I'm going to move these two, M, enter, and move them over. And we'll start drawing. Now it's nice that I have these lines that I can trace over, but whenever I'm giving a specific dimension, you want to use the offset command or the distance command instead of tracing. So we'll start off by tracing the exterior boundary. I have this dimension here, 28 feet for the overall width, and then 18 feet for the overall depth of this plan. So I can draw a rectangle, REC, enter, from this corner here. And instead of clicking on this corner and trying to guess, I already know that I can give a dimension to this rectangle. D, enter. And I want it to be 28 feet, enter, by 18 feet, enter. And then click to release. Notice how it's not going to lay exactly on top of the lines. Up here, it looks very nice. Down here, not so much. And that's related to the scaling of the image when it was printed and scanned again. So it's not going to be always accurate. That's why we always want to type in the dimensions when we're given instead of tracing. This image back here is only a reference for us. That is all. We're not actually tracing over it. There's a big difference. I'm given a dimension here that the thickness of the walls is 6 feet, so I can use my offset command. Select the distance to be 6 inches, and then click on this rectangle, and then hover towards the inside of the rectangle, and click to release the first offset of that thickness. I'm also giving a dimension here for the door to be at 7'2" from this corner. I can start drawing construction lines that can help me locate certain points. Construction lines are X line. If I draw this X line at this point from here, click again to release, it will give me a construction line that's going to span across my entire drawing, a vertical and a horizontal. One more time, I will delete those. X line, click on this point, and if I click on another point on the same exact axis, give me a horizontal one versus a vertical one. Another easy way to do this, if you don't want to use X lines, I can just draw a regular line, cross it horizontally here. I can copy this line over, CO, enter. 7'2", a vertical distance going down. That's 7 feet symbol, 2 inches symbol, and then enter. And this is the line here at 7'2". Now I can take this line and stretch it over so it can touch this line and give me that perpendicular sign. Remember that perpendicular signs or all your snap options are down here. If you click on this little arrow, you should have intersection, extension, perpendicular, center, midpoint, and endpoint on. And you want to make sure that the snap icon is blue. That means it's turned on. Hit escape twice, and now I can use the trim command to get rid of the axis piece in here. That's TR for trim, then space, space, and then click on the segment that you want to get rid of. Hit escape twice, and now I can get rid of these two lines in here. And I have my door frame, it begins here. An offset of 3 feet, so I can click this one, copy it over, CO, and go down in this direction and type in 3 feet, enter. And now I can get rid of this piece in here by using the trim command, TR, enter, enter, and select these two lines. And here's the opening for my door. There's another door here, so we can repeat the same thing one more time. 6'6" distance, so I'll draw a line from this corner horizontally. I will copy this line over, 6 feet 6 inches, enter. Stretch this line over. Use the trim command, TR, space, space. Click on the segment I want to get rid of. Then escape twice to select the other two lines and get rid of them. And now I need to offset 7 feet. So I'll take this guy, CO, enter. Select this point and moving down 7 feet, enter. And to trim this, I'm going to activate the trim command, TR, enter, enter, and get rid of this segment in here. And that is the opening for my second door. When it comes to the bottom piece in here, I know that from the exterior wall to exterior wall, there's a distance of 2 feet. And from this corner to this corner, it's 8 feet. So I'll repeat the same thing I did for the door by drawing a line from here to here. And I'm going to copy this line over 8 feet. I know that the thickness of my walls for the exterior walls was 6 feet, was 6 inches. So I will copy this line, 6 inches. Then from this line here to this line here is a total of 6 feet. So if I copy this line over, copy. In this direction, 6 feet. And then the thickness for my wall is 6 inches, so copy. And in this direction, 6 inches. And I don't need this line anymore. Same thing for the horizontal. I'll draw a line from the outside. And I need to copy this guy 2 inches or 2 feet. Then I can take this and stretch it. And I need to copy it 6 inches in. CO for copy. And move up 6 inches. And time to trim all this around. So TR, enter, enter. Select these lines to get rid of them. These guys, these. This one, this one, this one, this one. And I need to open this in here. And this one. Now I need to get rid of this piece in here. So I will need to take this line, extend it back. This line, extend it back. And use the trim, TR, enter, enter. And I get rid of the 2 pieces in the middle. And that completes my exterior walls. Now we can go in on the interior walls, and we're going to repeat the same thing one more time. I know that the reference from my interior wall in my sketch in the background to this inside wall is 6 feet 6 inches. So I will take this line. Remember, we draw as a rectangle, so it's drawing it as 2 lines next to each other. It's treating it as a polyline now. If I only want just a horizontal line, I can explode this. So I will select the polyline, hit X, enter to explode, or you can type in explode. And now we'll treat this as 1 line and this one as another line. Hit escape twice, and I will select this line here and copy it. 6 feet 6 inches. And the thickness for my interior walls is now 4 inches. So I can select this line and copy it again 4 inches in that direction. And I can open this area in here. TR, enter, enter, and get rid of this little segment in here. Same thing on this side, it's 7 foot 8. So I'll take this line, copy it over, 7 feet 8 inches, and a thickness of 4 inches. Copy it 4 inches. And these 2 should line up on top of each other directly. And we can trim this piece in here. And now I need to create a corner. So if you remember the fillet command from last class, F, enter, click on this line and this line. F, enter, this line and this line. The door edge in here is 3 feet away from the edge in here. So I can draw this line as a reference and copy it over 3 feet. And then copy this line over 2 feet 6 inches. I'll get rid of this line. I need to stretch or extend these 2 lines over. So I can use the extend tool, or I can stretch. By clicking, selecting the line, I can stretch this over to this point. Or I can use my stretch command. So it's actually called extend. So E, X, enter. So enter one more time. And now I can select this line. It will extend to the nearest object, which is this line in here. And then I can use the trim command, TR, enter, enter. Select these 2 lines and these 2 lines to get rid of them. We'll repeat this for this corner as well. Take this polyline. I'm going to use X to explode it. I will copy this line 4 feet. Actually, it's 4 foot 8 in here, not 4 feet. 4 feet 8 inches. And the thickness of my wall is 4. Escape twice, select this line, copy it 4 inches. Grab the line on the top, copy it down, 2'6", enter, hit escape, select this line and copy it 4 inches. Now we can use the fillet command, select these 2 lines, fillet command one more time, select these 2 lines, and we know that this line of the door is 8 inches away from the edge, so we can select this line, copy it, 8 inches, and this line is going to be 4 feet away. Trim, trim, and trim. And lastly, we're going to open these 2 together. Trim. And this completes the drawing of our walls in our project. Now, before we go in and get more deeper and building more content in here, let's talk a little bit about layers. Layers is a standard way of creating our drawings, and it's instituted by the American Institute of Architects. They gave us a guideline to help us name our layers so that it is easy for us to work from one project to another and from one office to another. It is a way for the entire construction industry to understand how the drawing is organized. The AIA guidelines starts off with what is called a discipline code. So whenever we create our layers, we should start off with a discipline code, and that discipline is related to the discipline that you're working with. It could be A for architects, I for interior, E for electrical, S for structural, and so on. Then we space, dash, space, or you can ignore the spaces. It could be just A, dash, and then start with the major group. A major group is related to the major components of the building. So it could be wall, window, door, stair, ceiling, etc. And then there's a minor group that further explains what it is. In this particular case, it's a wall pattern. So P-A-T-T. It could be a wall partial or half height. You could have a window glazing, a window frame, a door panel, and so on. If you want to see a list of the complete AIA guidelines, you can type in Google AIA layers, and you should be able to see the first link, a PDF that has about a dozen or more pages that explains this concept further detailed, as well as a list of all the layers that you could possibly have in a drawing in different disciplines. What we're going to do for our assignments, we're going to simplify this a little bit. We're going to follow the same method, except we're going to put a little twist on it to make it a little bit more simplified. So let's close this and go back to our AutoCAD file and open up our Layer Properties Manager and prepare a few basic layers that we're going to need for our floor plan. First, we'll start off by this image that we created before called image reference. We're going to left click inside the name in here, and I'm going to go right in the beginning, and we're going to be using a dash image reference, and I can leave it as that. If I want to expand this a little bit more so I can see more of the full name, I can do so by clicking on the line right between the 2 columns in here and just move it over, similar to Excel. Let's create a few more. So we're going to go to Layer Property, A dash wall, enter. A dash frame. And we'll use this one for window frames and door frames. One more, A dash glazing, GLZ. And we'll use this for any type of glazing that we may have in this project. A dash door dash panel. A dash door swing. A dash wall pattern. We're also going to annotate our drawing. So we're going to create another one in here called A dash anno for annotate dash room tag. One more, A dash anno dim for dimensions. Let's assign a color in here. We can go to a wall, and we want something that pops up in our screen. So the best color I can use against black background is cyan. Color number 4. Okay. A door frame is the next in line in terms of how dark I want it to appear on my screen. And this is all basically preference. It's up to you what color you decide to choose. I'll choose red or green. Glazing, I'll choose blue. Door panel, I'll choose red. I'm gonna keep the doors consistent. So for now, I'm gonna choose another shade of red. For a wall pattern, I'll choose one of these gray tones. For the room tag, I'll choose yellow. And for dimensions, I'll choose yellow. These colors right now are currently simply just for visual display on my screen. It is not until I create the CTB file, like what we did in the last class, that these colors actually mean something as far as what the line weights are. Now, in a typical floor plan, you want to have about 4 to 5 line weights. And the order of preference, or the order of hierarchy, the thickest should be your walls, and the thinnest should be any type of furniture or a door swing. And in between, you start off with wall, then we have frames, then we have casework, glazing, and then swings. We'll worry about these line weights in just a few moments, but for now, let's assign a color and create all these layers. And when we're done, we can hit the X. And we can take our work that we've done in here, so cross-select from left to right, and let's assign these to a wall. And hit escape twice. I'm almost done with this reference in here. I just need to create my door panels and door swings. So the door panels start off from the edge of the wall, and they're typically about 1 3/4 inches or 1.5 inches thick. And the height is the same as the width of the door. So I'll first go to the appropriate layer, a door panel, draw a line or a rectangle, click on this corner, dimension. I want it to be 3 feet by 1.5 inches. And click to release. Now I need to draw a swing. We can draw a swing in several ways. One is drawing an arc. 2, I can draw a circle and trim it. Type in circle, C, enter. I'll specify my point as this point right here. And the end point is going to be this point right here. And this should swing right to the tip in here. Now if I use the trim command, TR, enter, enter, I can click on the part that I don't want and get rid of it. Hit escape twice. Remember that this should be very light, so I can select this and put it under a door swing. Now, if I have several of these doors of the same size, remember that we use the block tool. last week. So I can select these two items in here. I can copy them over. I can block this so I can repeatedly use it throughout my project. However, notice that my next door here is only 2'6". Well, I can also use the scale tool in this case. I'm not going to block it since I don't have another door that I'm going to use it in, but I can use this to scale it and rotate it. Or I can repeat the same process again down here. I'll select these two, scale, SC, enter, click a base point, and now I can use the reference, R, enter, and I can tell AutoCAD that from here to here, I want it to be 2 feet, 6 inches. I need to make it look like this, so I'll rotate it, select it, R, O, enter. I'll select this point in here and move it down 90 degrees, click. Then I need to mirror it. Select it again, MI for mirror, enter. I'll select this point here and go down. That's my mirror axis. Click. Do I want to erase the source object? Yes. Hit escape twice. I'll select this door and move it. That's M, enter. From this corner to this corner in here. And that completes my second door. Let's move over to this door. Looks like I have a door frame in here. And this is a glass door. Another door frame in here. So it's basically two panels that slide in front of each other. Let's create this frame. If I want to have an idea of what thickness this is, I'll use the DI, distance, measure from here to here. It's about 2 inches and roughly about 2.5 inches this way. I can draw a rectangle and make sure I'm under door frame or a frame, rectangle, distance. It draws the horizontal first, so that's 2 inches by 2.5 inches. Click. Now I can select this. If I want it to be in the center of this door, I can move it from the midpoint to the midpoint in here. But it seems like it's a little bit off to the right. How much off? If I try to get a distance, it's about 1 inch away from the edge. So the easiest way to do this, I can move this rectangle to the edge, then select it again and move it towards this direction and type in 1 inch. And now this frame is ready to go. Now, assuming that all the frames are the same sizes, I have a 7-foot door opening, which means the center in here should be about 3'6". So I'll draw a line in here, move this line 3 feet 6 inches. That is the center of that door opening. And both of my door frames should align in front of each other upon that center. I'll select the circle and copy it, or this rectangle and copy it. From this center in here, this midpoint, to this midpoint in here. Escape twice, select this object and copy it from here to here. I no longer need this reference. Now I need to copy this one all the way at the edge. Select this, copy. I can select the midpoint, go straight. And remember, I want it to be straight. I don't want it to be at the midpoint here. I want a vertical line. So make sure you're snapping onto your vertical line and click to release. I could have also done one complete panel, turn it into a block, and then copy that panel over. if I want them to be identical as well. There's many ways to cut the pies. I'm only showing you one. You figure out which one is best for you, and that's the one that I want you to use. Now, glass panel is about usually 1/2 inch. So I'll draw a rectangle that is 1/2 inch wide, but I need to know how high it's going to be, or what is the width, I should say. So DI, from this point to this point, the depth of my panel is 3'2" 1/4". So REC for rectangle, I will click to release the first point of the rectangle. D for dimensions, enter. The width is 1/2 inch, so it's 0.5, enter. And I want it to be 3 feet, 2 inches and 1/4. That's 2.25 of an inch. Enter. And then click to release. I'll select this and put it under the A glazing layer, and then move it to the center of my frame. Center of this glaze to the center of this frame. Make sure it touches here exactly. And I'll copy this from the center in here to the center of the other frame above. And this completes this door. One more door in here. I need to know what angle this is on. So I can draw a line from this point and move my cursor just to roughly get the angle. I'm about 45 degrees. But notice how the door is drawn from this point inwards. So I'll draw a line from this corner at 45 degrees. This is your polar snapping in here. Remember to change it to 45 degrees and it will snap automatically on there. Notice how it goes automatically to 45. Now I have a door that is 4 feet wide that have 4 panels. That means each one of these panels is a foot. The dimension that you're getting that's changing right now on your screen in blue, that is how long this line is. I want it to be 1 foot exactly. So as soon as I snap onto the 45-degree line, I can type in 1 foot. When I go into this direction, it's going to snap onto the other 45-degree, and the door panel will be 1.5 inches. Then I can go back in here. Make sure it snaps onto the 45-degree, but I'm drawing it in the 3rd quadrant around, so it's going to be 135. Type in another 1 foot. And then I can type in C, enter to close. Down here it says C to close. My panel might be a little bit thicker than what's shown out here. So if I want to make it thinner, I can click on this line and move it from this point along this axis to the midpoint. That will make it 3/4 of an inch thick. And I can use the trim command, TR, enter, enter, and click on the 2 extra lines that appear in here. Now, this panel is going to repeat. So maybe it's time for me to do a block. I select the object, that's these 4 lines in here. Make sure that they're on the correct layer before you block them. So I'm going to put them on the door panel. I'm going to type in block, enter, specify a name, folding door panel, and click OK. Now this is one object. I can mirror the object, select it, and type in MI space. The axis is going to be right at this point right here. Click, and then identify the 90 degrees, enter. Do I want to erase the source object? In this case, no. And I can copy this over to this side. And that finalizes my doors and my walls for the assignment. The next thing we want to do is we want to dimension. So we're going to go to D, IM, that's dimension. Click on this point in here. Click on this point in here. And then raise the dimension, and then click. In the last assignment, we've dimensioned in the paper space. For this assignment, I want you to dimension in the model space. We need to do all our work in the model space. Notice how the dimension is really tiny. I want to make this dimension bigger so I can be able to see it. Just about the same size as the one behind here. So if I click on this and right click to go to the properties, to see what dimension style am I using. I'm using the standard style in here. So to adjust this dimension style, if I click on this arrow in here, I don't have options to go adjust the dimension style. Under the Annotate tab, however, under the dimensions, here if I click, I can manage dimension styles. If you type in D, enter, that is also manage dimension styles. Under the standard, I'm going to go to modify, and I will want to bump up the text a little bit. For the primary units, I want to make it architectural. And for the text, I want to change the text height in here. Right now it's at 3/16. Let's see what 2 inches look like. 2, okay, and close. Seems pretty small still. Perhaps we should try 6 inches. D, enter, or space, modify. Under text, let's put 6 inches. Okay, and close. Just about right. Let's continue on. So DIM is the shortcut for dimension, and I would go around in here and create these dimension strings that mimic the ones that already exist in this reference. Whenever you grab a dimension, you want to make sure that the dimension doesn't touch the drawing. So notice how there's a small gap in here. You want to grab this dimension and move it right to the tip in here. And it's going to automatically add that little gap in here. If we want to make this gap bigger, that's also in the dimension style. D, enter, modify. And let's look for where we can move this little gap in there. Under lines, it's called offset from origin. Let's set ours to 2 inches. And while we're there, we can play around with the arrows at the end. We need to make them a little bit bigger, we can see them. In fact, the standard for architectural drawing is usually something called tick marks. Those are the 45-degree slashes. After you switch the offset from origin to 2, we can go back to symbols and arrows and switch these to tick marks. Architecture tick and architectural tick. Leave the leader as is. And this is the size of the tick. Let's put ours to 3 inches. And let's see if that's a good size that we like. Click OK and close. Distance here should increase, should be somewhat visible. And the tick marks are about a good size. Once you complete dimensioning your drawing, we no longer need this reference below here. So we can take it and hit delete. When it asks us we would like to attach the image, we'll choose no. And now we're ready to move on to the next level, where we can add in our porch and the front and the back, as well as our windows. Now, one thing we need to be careful with here is that there are 2 different images, and we experienced before that when we scale an image, it's not quite exactly as we want it to be. So instead of using the lines back here to start tracing from scratch, I'm going to use the plan that I actually completed in here. So before I go ahead and start this, I'm going to save this in case my file crashes. You should try to save every 15 to 20 minutes or so. I'll save this on my desktop for now. I'm going to call it modules 11 to 14. Let's start by doing the windows. They seem a little bit more simpler. From the corner in here, I need to measure 3, 4.5. I need to have a 3-foot window opening. But notice how I'm not getting rid of my wall lines in here, because when I cut through this wall, I still see the wall below, or at least a windowsill below. So I just need to create or identify these 2 lines in here. That's 3 foot 4.5, and then the 3-foot window from there. So we'll repeat the same process that we've done before. I'll draw a reference line at the corner in here. Copy this over. 3 feet, 4 inches and a half. And then copy this line over 3 feet. And I can get rid of the first line. Be sure to constantly look at your layers. I can already tell that I started to get drawing happy, and I didn't realize that I never changed my layer. My dimensions are actually under A frame. One of the quick ways I can select my dimensions is by selecting one of them, right click, and choose select similar. And then I can switch them all to ANO dim. It's going to work for the majority of them. It might miss 1 or 2. And now that I'm working with window, I should switch this to a window, but not just quite yet, because I'm still drawing a wall line in here. So the layer I should be on right now is a wall. I'll extend this line over, and so is this one. And now I'll use the trim command to get rid of these 2 lines. And here's the location of my first window. Next one is 1 foot 10 from the edge, and then it's a 4-foot window. I'll draw a horizontal line. Copy this over. 1 foot 10. And it's a 4-foot window. So I can select this line and copy it over 4 feet. Use my extend tool. One more time. To extend is EX, enter, enter, click, click, and click. Okay. Another way to use the extend tool is to give it a reference. So I can use extend, enter, only once, select the reference that I want to extend to, and hit enter again. And notice how it stays blue. That means it's going to take any line and extend it to this line. Click, and then click. And skip twice. Same thing for trim. TR, enter, select the reference that I want to trim against, enter, then click on the segment I want to get rid of. And I'll move this dimension out of the way. Next is this one. It's 4'6" away and it's 5 feet. If these dimensions are coming in your way, remember that you can turn off the layer, go into ANO dim, and turn it off temporarily. Now I'm ready to draw my frames in. Frame's a little bit pixelated to scale, but depends on the type of window it is. If it's an operable window, it's different than a non-operable window. This is displayed as a non-operable window. It goes from one frame to the other frame. An operable window, if it's sliding window, it will look exactly like the sliding door. That means one slides into the other. Let's draw these as sliding windows. And probably the fastest way to do this, I can use my doors since I already did them. And I can use those. So I'm going to cross-select this area in here to copy this over. I'll delete the lines that I don't want, which is the lines of the wall. I'll use the same exact frame thickness. I just need to shrink it down to fit. I'll first identify the center of my window. To find the center of two lines, we want to activate the line command. That's L-enter. Hold Shift and right-click. You'll see an option in here that says midpoint between 2 points. Mid between 2 points. I can click on this point and this point, and it's going to draw the first point automatically for me at the midpoint of that window. Let's try this one more time. L, enter, hold Shift, and then right-click, mid between 2 points, this point and this point. Let me do that for all my windows. One more time, L, enter, hold Shift, right-click, mid between 2 points, first point, second point, and that's the midpoint between these 2 points in here. What this will help me do is I can select this right here, move it from the center to center. Now I need to bring this down and this one up a little bit. That's called the stretch command. I'm going to be stretching this point down and this point, or these points up. Now, a stretch command works by points, not objects. Therefore, this object in here has 4 points, while this object in here on the top here has 2 points. So if I want to stretch this entire area and bring it down, I need to make sure that I select all of these 6 points. So the way this works is S for stretch, enter, and then C, enter for cross select, which means I'm going to start selecting from left to right. So S, enter, C, enter, and then click to select these points in here, and then hit enter. Now I can grab the edge in here, and notice how they all behave and move together. I can choose this as my reference point in here. I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering over it. Then I'm gonna move back till I get my vertical line. I'm going straight down and then click. I'll do the same thing for this one. S, enter, C, enter. Select the rectangle and the beginning of the glazing. Enter. I'll click on the corner in here, reference this end by hovering over it and going back till I get a vertical straight line, click to release. And now I can select these guys and copy them over, CO, from here to the center of my wall. And I may want to nudge it a little bit so it's not right at the face. So I'll select these objects, and then to deselect the parts of my wall, I will hold Shift to deselect the edges of my wall, and then move it in a little bit. Perhaps about an inch. And I can get rid of the center line. And this is how I can create my window. This is an A-frame, and this is a glaze. Okay, let's try this one more time down here. I'll click this guy. Let me copy it over. And we'll rotate this 90 degrees. I need to find my midpoint, so line. Hold shift, right click. Mid between 2 points, click and click. I'll move this to the center. And now I need to use the stretch command. S, enter, C, enter, select this area, enter. I'll click the end point in here, reference it here, come back down straight, S, enter, C, enter, cross select. Remember to always click from left to right, not right to left. So from left to right. It should be a green box, not a blue box. Enter. Then from this point, reference. And now I'm ready to move this. From here to the midpoint. And I want to select these guys here and move them 1 inch. And that's window number 2. Okay, there's many ways that you can do this. We can basically do it a much shortcut, a better shortcut basically to do what I just did that may work in this particular case because we only have 2 objects. So one way to do this that you might find easier is to select these objects here. Remember not to select your wall ends. I'm going to copy this from the edge or face of this wall to the face of this wall. These happen to be the same exact size. That's perfect. Here, not so much. Okay. Now I can select these and move them to this side. Okay. But now I need this to be at the center of my window. So I'll move it here. And I'll move this one in here, center to center. And I can take this rectangle, and if I look for this line right in the center between the rectangle, click, that basically stretches it item by item. Okay, so whichever works easier for you, you can use whatever method that works for you to complete all your windows. Final part is to create these columns in here and the railings, as well as the stairs that lead up to this deck over here. All right, so let's go ahead and create the layers that we need. Back to Layer Property Manager. We're going to open that up and create another layer. It'll be A, stair, and then tread. And we can give this whichever color we want. I'll choose this magenta. Another one here will be A, railing. And one more for the column. A, column. Make sure that your layers are set to print. The only ones that you don't want to print is the A reference. And I'm going to choose cyan for my columns. Okay, so I'm ready here to create the porch. It seems like to be 8 feet away, and it's the entire length of my floor plate. And then the stair starts between 7'9" and it's 4'6" wide. So I'm going to activate my railing layer, line, or I can use P-line so it stays consistent or continuous. P-line, that's polyline, 8 feet, enter. Then I'm going to use this corner as a reference by just hovering over it to snap, but I'm not really clicking. Once I get that square, I can hover back. When I get a vertical line, click, and then go in here and click. Okay, so that is the exterior perimeter. The railing seems to be about 2 inches thick, or 3. Let's figure out DI. From this line to this line, it's about 3 inches wide. So I could use my offset tool. Offset, 3 inches. The column in here, if I use DI, is about 7 to 8 inches or so. DI, enter. 8, about 8. So I'm going to use a rectangle at this corner in here. Swap the layers first. Distance, that's D, enter. 8, enter 8. And I'll choose this quadrant. And I can copy this to the other side since there's a column here as well. And now we need to trim these lines. So I'm going to have to select these polylines, explode them. I can take these 2 lines and move them back. So it's going to be hard to trim this line because it overlaps with the column. This one might be easier to just click on this endpoint and drag it. Select this line, click on this endpoint and drag it. While these 2 I can trim. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. Trim, but these guys I'll click and drag over. Click and drag over. Now time to do the stairs and the railing next to the stairs. So I need 7'9" and it's 4'6". I'll take this line here and copy it over. 7 feet 9 inches. And this one is going to be 4'6". And the railing is on the inside of these dimensions, 7'9" plus 3 inches here. And then after the 4'6", I'm going back up 3 inches, the thickness of the railing. So I'm going to select this one, copy it, 3 inches. And this one, copy it to be 3 inches this direction. And I can move these towards the outside of my building or my porch. The depth is 3'6". So I will copy this line, 3 feet 6 inches. And now I can use my fillet tool. And my trim tool to clean this up. Now, if we notice that the corner post here is slightly bigger than the railing, so we'll make it 3.5 inch and 1/4 inch offset on each one of the sides. Okay, so let's do that. Rectangle. Make sure I'm on the railing. Dimension 3.5 by 3.5. And I want to move this from the center to the center of these two railings in here. So remember that I can use my shift and right click midpoint between two lines, this one and this one, and boom. And now I need to move it up to be centered along this railing in here. Since I know it's 1/2 inch extra, DI, from here to here, 1/2 inch, I can just click it and move it 0.25. And go inside here and trim, TR, enter, enter, and let's clean this up. Okay, I'm going to take this rectangle now and copy it over. From this point is my reference to this point, and that's going to place it exactly where I need it to be, where I can just go in here and TR, enter, enter, and clean this up. In fact, I need to get rid of this as well. Now I have 10-inch treads. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 treads, and it seems like the tread starts off with the face of this railing. So let's go to the tread layer, and I'll draw a line that references this point here. And this line, I'm going to copy it over, or I should use offset a few times. So offset 10 inches. Click on the reference line, go towards the direction I want to copy in, click, click, and click. Sometimes when you have objects close to each other, it might be helpful to choose a different color. So for stair tread, perhaps I'll use something along these shades, just so I can see the difference from far away. And I want to make sure that they extend towards the edge. So EX, and remember that when you choose EX, enter, you can pick one line, enter, and then it will use that as a reference. In this case, it won't matter. You can also do EX, enter, enter, and then select these lines and extend right to the edge. And this completes the porch on this side. Now, on the other side, notice how it's basically identical in a way, except it moves over a little bit. And that's why I wanted to show you the stretch command on the windows. Because what we're going to do is we're basically going to copy or mirror this over, and we're going to use the stretch command to get it to where we need to be. Okay, so let's do that first. I will select these lines right here. I'm going to mirror it. And I don't know exactly where the center is, so I'll go somewhere far away so I know that it lands somewhere on the outside of the house. And I'll choose no for do not erase original objects. And you want to make sure that you move the end point right to the corner in here. So that is the identical mirrored porch on the other side. The first thing is the depth. It's supposed to be 4 feet. This one is 8 feet. So I need to stretch this 4 feet. So S, enter, C, enter, selecting all the objects that I want to move. Remember that only these two lines need to stretch. These two and these two right here. 1, 2, 1, 2. And these two lines have 2 points right at the edge. So I need to make sure I select everything that I want to move in addition to these 2 points in here. So S, enter, C, enter, select all the way to probably like the center of these two lines. enter, click on this point right here, and I can stretch it in any direction I want. You should be able to see it moving like this. And what you want to do is you want to move in that direction, make sure it's straight, 4 feet. So that takes care of the depth of the porch. Next one is, it is 6'5", the end of the railing from the edge in here, versus this one was 7'9". So a little bit of math here. One easy way to figure out the difference is to count up to the inches and then count up to the feet. So here I have 5 inches, here I have 9. So it's 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 4 inches. And then I have 6 feet, and this is 7 feet. So it's 6, 7. That's 1 foot. So 1 foot, 4 inches smaller. So I can select this area. So S, enter. C, enter. Select the area, enter, and move up in that direction 1 foot, 4 inches. Enter. And that will move that porch where it needs to be. Let's turn on our annotate dim layer. And here we want to add additional dimensions, which will outline the porch. So go ahead and activate your dimension, that's DIM. Make sure you're on the appropriate layer. Be careful where you snap onto. It's supposed to be 8 feet. It looks like I snap in a little bit far away. So you can always select the dimension and click on this point at the end right here and move it where it needs to be, and that should adjust your dimension. There is another shortcut that I can create a continuous dimension string. Since I have a dimension from here to here to here to here, I can use a command called quick dimension right here. That's QDIM. If you type in QDIM or click on this guy here, make sure that you set your dimension to be current layer, so it goes on the current layer right away. And in here, I can select the lines that I want the dimensions from. So I can select this line, this line, this line, and lastly, this line. And notice how they're highlighted purple. And then hit enter or spacebar. And now I can move out in this direction here. That's where I want to place that dimension. And then click to release. And that will create these dimension strings. The trick is that the lines must be parallel to each other when you use this command. That's a quick way to get these dimensions quickly. If you notice that we've guessed that these are 3 inches before, we are correct. It's actually 3 inches. Just set it in here. This one is 4 inches. If you drew it already at 3.5, that's fine. If you notice that it was 4 inches, you can draw it at 4 inches. It's not a big deal in this particular case. And hence the same on the other side. We're now ready to get rid of this drawing in here and start working with our line weights. And just as for the record, if you zoom in here, there is a little bit more detailed representation of what the window should look like or could look like. This is a swing out window versus the one that we went over in our assignment. It's more of a sliding window. Doesn't really matter which one you've used. As long as you represent it with mullions and glazing, you should be fine for this assignment. So let's click on this and hit delete. And when it asks us to attach it, to detach it, you can use yes or no. Detach it means it will remove it completely from the file. If you say no, it will keep it in there until we go and remove it from an XREF. Again, in this particular case, it wouldn't really matter. Let's save our file and go into our construction plan layout in here and make this viewport bigger. And then let's double click inside and move in so we can bring in our drawing in here. If this grid bothers you, you remember you can take it off by clicking on the grid symbol in here to turn it off. And one common thing that usually happens to many of us, if we zoomed in here too much and we double click, we can't get out of the drawing because now we're stuck in the model space within the paper space. So you have to type in paper space, PS is the command, P space, enter. That takes you back to the paper space and you're able to zoom out. That's why I highly recommend you, as soon as you set the scale that you want down here, to lock the viewport so that this doesn't happen to you, okay? So let's see what scale fits best in here that doesn't make it look too crowded. Eventually, we're going to add a title block in here, so we want something that's about this big, give or take. So if we double click in here, we can go down this list. You can start off by a quarter scale. If you scroll down here to a quarter scale, it looks like we can do a little bit bigger. You can try the next one, 3/8 scale. Seems like about a good, decent size. So one scale that would work best for us is the 3/8 of an inch scale. That's what we will submit our plans on. And as soon as I set it to that scale, I'm going to lock it so that I don't accidentally change the scale by mistake. Okay? We can take this viewport layer, remember to put it under def points. So under the home tab, you can select the viewport and put it under the def points layer. That's the layer that does not print. And now we can go ahead and create our CTB for our project. Okay? Going back to the layers tab under home, layers properties. Here are the colors that I chose. I can go in here and decide what color I want to print to what layer. So I know that the thickest is going to be my walls. So a wall is going to be that cyan color. That's going to be the thickest. And then I want the next to be the door frames. So that's the green. Next will be the panel, that's red. So cyan, green, then red. It might be sometimes helpful if you want to take out a note. So you can write this down. So thickest to thinnest. So here I will type in thickest is my walls, then my door frames, then I have door panels, then I have door swings. And that is my walls. Now I have columns. Columns should be also very nice and dark. So we'll go in here, columns. I have railings. Railings should be about the same as door panels. And then I have the treads, which could be kind of, you can kind of bump this up and bump this up even more. So I can say, well, railings are higher than treads. They could be just as thick as frames. And then the treads for the stairs are the same as panels, and swings will be the lightest. And then we have dimensions. They should be very light. For the actual strings, the dimension strings will be very light. And I think this covers all our layers. We don't have any wall hatches yet or room tags. We'll get to that in just a moment. Now, let's go ahead and go to print. So Control P. And create a new CTB file by clicking in here, say new. Next. Next. Remember to choose start from scratch. Module 11 to 14, I'll call my CTB file and then finish. And now I can go in here and edit my CTB. So we click on the first one, we'll scroll all the way at the bottom, hold shift, then click on the last one. And I'm gonna choose all of them to print black. That is the first thing I'm going to do. Then I'm gonna go to my order category in here and start assigning what each color is. So cyan was my walls and I want it to be the thickest. So I'm gonna start off by assigning this to be 0.5. Click save and close. And I'm gonna go to apply to layout. So it stays there. And I'm gonna go to preview to take a look. And zoom in here. Looks like cyan is a pretty decent thickness. Doesn't really tell me much because everything is very thick at this moment. Back to my layer properties, the next color that should be next in line is columns. And columns is currently set to cyan as well. I'll write the legend so I don't have to go back and forth. Door frames or frames in general is set to green. Railings is set to magenta. Door panels is red. Treads is color 181. Door swings is 20. And dimensions is yellow. Control P, open up my CTB settings. And whenever it gives you a color, red, cyan, magenta, blue, cyan, these are the first initial few colors in here. Now, referencing my chart, we assigned cyan as the darkest column. I want it to be cyan as well. So if I already assigned cyan to be color weight 0.5, then I'm good to go. I don't need to do anything there. They share the same color. The frames and the railings, I want them to be about the same weight as well. So I need to go to green and magenta and give them the same color. So here's green. Line weights, we're gonna jump from 0.5 to 0.35 for green and magenta. Next one is the door panels and the treads. That's red and 181. So red is color number 1. We'll jump from 0.35 to 0.25 and go down to color 181. And also assign 0.25. Lastly is color number 20 and yellow. We want them to be the lightest, and we'll keep those at 0. Yellow and 20. Yellow, line weight 0. And then 20, line weight 0. Save and close, and let's go to preview. Seems like some of the line weights is not so clear. So the door swings come out very nice and light. The difference between the panel and the wall is very nice. The glazing, however, not so much, and the railing, not so much. The railing must be much lighter because we're not cutting through it, it's low, and the glazing should be much lighter than that. And also the frames are very thick. So let's go back and see where we went wrong. Back to layer properties. Glazing is blue, so we need that to be very light. And we want to make the green, which is the frames, a little bit lighter. Glazing is blue. It looks like we missed it last time. Glazing should be around also very light, so we can go down to perhaps 0.1. And for railing, that's 0.35. Let's bring that down a notch to also 0.25 and take a look. This looks very nice now. The frames are thinner than the wall, and the glazing is thinner than the frame. The order looks very nice. The railing, however, also still needs to go down just one more notch, and then I think we'll be good to go. Railing was magenta. 0.35 is a little too thick. Let's bring that to 0.25. And now it's coming together with decent line weights. And we can take the treads, since they are lower than the railing, and bring them down a notch a little bit. So treads were color 181. We'll do those as 0.1. And there you go. So you can see that line weights are generally relative. It all depends on what the thickness is to the previous darker element. What you need to use or know the rules of thumb, and that is the thickest on your drawing should be your walls. So when you zoom in here, you should see that walls are the thickest element. Then comes in any type of frames or railings, and then glass, door swings, and treads are generally the lightest of all. And as far as dimension, the string should be very thin and light, and the tick mark should be nice and dark, like you see in here. Play around with it, and once you submit your drawing, I will take a look at it, and I will give you advice on what you should make thicker or thinner. You will need to probably keep your color selection somewhat organized. You don't want to go all over the place when you are selecting your layer colors in here. You want to try to stay in order. Perhaps you can go with color 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 10 or 20 or however many layers you will need, rather than just jumping all over the place, because you will require to do something like what I did in here, basically a legend that tells me what color is what. So when I'm in the CTB settings, I need to know what color I'm referencing for each type. Last but not least, and we'll finalize the module for this week, is to add hatches. We'll hatch only our walls and our column. Generally, we hatch anything that we're cutting through. In this case is the walls and the columns. And we do hatch the frames as well of the window because we are cutting through them. So if you remember, the hatch command is H, enter. And we want to hover over the area that we want to select. We'll choose solid hatch for the hatch of the walls and the columns. You might want to go to the appropriate layer first, so you can skip a step. That's AWOL PAT, and then hatch. Choose solid, and basically just hover over each one of these areas for the wall, and you can click on them, and it will hatch that area. If you ever see something like this, it means that you have a line that's connecting by mistake. So you might want to go back and trim this line before you continue to hatch. The more complicated the shape, the longer it takes to hatch. I'm basically creating all my hatches in one by clicking one area after the other. Make sure you save constantly, especially before you hatch. Hatches generally, if the area is not enclosed, it could freeze your drawing. I want to show you an example here of how you can make your hatch or AutoCAD when you're hatching, make it think less. Because the shape is very complex, it might take a long time. You could potentially close this area right here by adding an additional line and then hatch this area. So it only is looking at this small area rather than the total interconnected boundary. And then once you create it, you hit enter to release or complete the command, and then go in here and drag this point back. Okay, so that's one way to trick the program into hatching a smaller area. You also want to make sure that when you're hatching, the entire area that you're going to hatch is visible on the screen. For instance, if I'm trying to hatch this area in here, I cannot be zoomed in like this and then click inside. The program needs to see the entire, all the pixels of the boundary in order for it to create a hatch successfully. Then we want to create a hatch for our frames in here for the windows and door frames. So we're going to use a slightly different hatch. That is the ANSI 131. And this scale is about appropriate. We can make it a little bit larger if we want. We'll see how it prints out. Now, one thing to remember that we chose the color to be a shade of gray so that we can see it nicely on the screen. But in the CTB file, we selected all the colors for the CTB file to print black. So we will need to go back to the CTB file and assign a shade of screening for the wall hatch pattern color. Okay, so if this guy is too tight, remember we can select it, right click, go to properties, and change the scale of the pattern. So if I want to select all of them, I select one, right click, and I'll choose select similar. And it should select all the hatches in your model. And remember, we don't want the hatch of the solid, so we can hold shift to deselect those. Sometimes it might like it or might not, so you have to be careful which part you're deselecting. For me, it looks like it's working fine. It still has those hatches selected for the windows. And I can go in at once and go to the pattern scale. And if we scale it up to perhaps 3, you'll notice that it becomes less dense. So something about this much should be appropriate for our scale that we're printing at. Let's go in here again to the construction plan and go to Control P and go to the color of the pattern and switch it to a light gray. Okay, so under properties, the color that we used was 253. In the CTB file, we can go to color 253 and choose the line weight to be 0 and assign a screening to perhaps 65%. And let's take a look at the preview. Still a bit too dark. We can probably switch it to 50% screening. There's one way to do this. Or you can also switch the color. So rather than dealing with the screening, I can put this back to 100% again, but choose that this one particularly not to print black, but to print perhaps this light shade of gray. Either one will work in this case. There you go. This is it for this module. What we're going to do is print this to PDF, and you're going to submit this for your assignment. Assignment 9 sample, and we were going to post this on module 11 for your reference. And hopefully what we're looking for to get a complete grade is something that looks very similar to this in terms of the line quality, the line weights, the dimensions, and all the geometry and accuracy.